Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Did you ever think the day would come where a impending head of the DDF, formerly known as the CDF, formerly known as the Holy Office, formerly known as the Holy Office of the Inquisition, did you ever think that the church's ostensible head of doctrine under the Pope of the Catholic Church would open the door, or at least seem to open the door, or maybe put a little crack in the window to let in a little bit of rainbow-colored air, seemingly leading to the possibility of blessing gay couples in their unions? Did you ever think that would happen? I did, because I read Archbishop Lefebvre. But if you didn't think that would happen, hold on to your pants, because it looks like it's coming down the pike. This article is from the National Catholic Reporter, and they write about how this new fella here, Archbishop Victor Manuel Fernandez, Smoochy Fernandez, as he's colloquially known, because he wrote a book on the benefits of erotic kissing and said it was a catechesis book that was geared towards attracting young people. Groomer much. In any case, he's basically talked about how possibility you could have, these blessings of gay unions, blah, 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 and this is fine, and we'll explain. He's going to explain why. And the reason I chose a National Catholic Distorter is because they're very pro this guy, so they're going to give us the honest-to-goodness exposition of everything he said and say, look at it's really great, put a little whipped cream and a cherry on top, you got yourself the Anglican Church. So it says, Pope Francis' new choice to lead the Vatican's influential doctrine office. Influential doctrine office. Huh? But anyway. Says that questions surrounding blessings for gay couples must be further studied. And this is a quote from Smoochy Fernandez. If a blessing is given in such a way that it does not cause that confusion, it will have to be analyzed and confirmed. Let's just break that quote down for a second. If the blessing of a gay couple's union is done in a way that does not cause confusion, how is that possible? It will have to be analyzed and confirmed. So we've got to analyze it, then confirm it. Shouldn't we make that decision? Anyway, this was an interview on July 5th. This is like the other day. This isn't like some quote from 20 years ago. He said this like 2 days ago. At the same time, however, Fernandez offered a strong defense of the church's traditional teaching on marriage as between a man and a woman capable of producing new life. No, he didn't. But he said this, there is nothing that can be compared to that, and using that name to express something else is not good or correct. I believe that gestures or actions that may express something different should be avoided. That is why I think the greatest care must be taken to avoid rites or blessing that could feed this confusion. Now, if a blessing is given in such a way that it does not cause that confusion, it will have to be analyzed and confirmed. This is modernism par excellence. Let's look at this. So he says, I believe that gestures or actions that may express something different should be avoided. I believe that these things should be avoided. Is that the same thing as saying you cannot do things? Because, for example, if somebody says, hey, would you eat at that restaurant? And I heard it was bad. I'd say, I'd probably avoid that one if I were you. I wouldn't say you're forbidden to go, because if you want to eat there, you want to eat there. That is why I think the greatest care that must be taken is to avoid rites or blessings that could feed this confusion. So we should avoid them, although we're not forbidden. And the reason we should avoid them, even though we could technically if we wanted to, we need to avoid them because it could feed confusion. Confusion about what? Now, if a blessing is given in such a way that it does not cause that confusion, it will have to be analyzed and confirmed. This is exactly how they will start blessing same-sex marriage in the church. And this is a dog whistle to an ancient practice that has been out of use for a long time and should not be brought back because of the context of where we're at. And we'll look at a tweet here from the chairman of the Latin Mass Society of the UK, Joseph Shaw, and make that bigger. And Eric Sammons had said, replying to something that Father Schneider of the Legionaries of Christ had said, and he was basically trying to do the whole Pope-splaining thing. He says, the church can't bless a sexual relationship outside of marriage. The church can bless a chaste friendship. If people want the church to bless the relationship between two people of the same sex, there needs to be clarity. They mean the latter, not the former. Eric Salmon said, I don't dispute the intentions behind this approach, but it's doomed to failure. You're too nice, Eric. There's no tradition of blessing chaste friendships. It would only serve as a wink and a nod at homosexual relationships. Exactly correct. We must stop conceding ground and instead aggressively resist the homo heresy. Joseph Shaw, see the Twitter. Twitter is lit, my friends. It's a fun place to be. And he says, actually, there is such a tradition, but I agree with the point. Anyway, the tradition died out centuries ago. Be on your guard against arguments based on this. So what is he talking about? He's talking about this thing here called Adelphopoesis. Not bad. Was a ceremony practiced historically in the Catholic and Eastern Orthodox traditions to unite two people together of the same sex in a church-recognized relationship analogous to siblinghood. Such ceremonies can be found in the history of the Catholic Church until the 14th century and in the Eastern Orthodox Church until the early 20th century. Documented in Byzantine manuscripts from the 9th to the 15th century, prayers established participants as spiritual brothers and contain references to sainted pairs, including most notably Saint Sergius and Bacchus, as well as Saints Cosmas and Damian, who were famous for their friendship. Now, here's the thing. I'm actually going to disagree slightly here with Joseph Shaw at my detriment because he's an Oxford, I think he was an Oxford professor, and I'm just some hack with a degree in Spanish. But in any case, I would say this isn't the same thing at all. So it doesn't seem like these blessings in the past had anything to do with a chaste relationship in the sense of there was the undertone of sexuality. It just seems like it's almost like some sort of monastic life where they live as a pair. I don't think that's really the same. So I would probably tend to agree with Eric Salmons where he says this idea of blessing chaste friendships, meaning in the sense that the church will say, well, you can bless two people who have same-sex attraction living with one another as long as they promise to be, continent. That is non-existent. And I don't think Joseph Shaw was suggesting that that's what that was. I'm just saying I would kind of have to agree with both. Yes, they will use this argument as a way of showing that you could have this blessing of these same-sex unions. Also, Eric Salmons is correct that in the way that it will be done, there's nothing like this in church history. Here's ultimately what the modernists, the James Martins of the world, want you to believe. They want you to believe that Catholicism is a behaviorist religion. What does that mean? Well, if you look at, for example, claims about Orthodox Judaism, you saw that debate or that conversation between Jordan Peterson and some other Christian leaders, evangelicals, Protestants, Orthodox, whatever. And Dennis Prager was there, who is a conservative religious Jew. And he basically said that he doesn't really care if somebody uses pornography in the Jewish tradition because it's not the same thing as actually committing adultery, which is forbidden by the Torah. I don't agree with him, and I'm not trying to throw mud at him here or throw rocks. But that was, and he said, well, this is because Judaism is a behaviorist religion, where Christianity is not. So basically, the Judaism, in the opinion of Dennis Prager, doesn't necessarily consider the interior life as being a matter of morality, but instead just the actions. This is, of course, different than Christianity because we believe Christ transforms us through the soul and so on and so forth, which we understand in our intellect interiorly. But the point is, these modernists, Joseph Shaw, Eric Salmons, not modernists, but the people they're talking about, these modernists, they want you to make a behaviorist approach because ultimately they're legalists. You see, legalism is always on both sides of the coin. The Novus Ordites appeal to, well, technically we found this one thing here. It's like they're being legalists. They're like IRS agents trying to find a way to damn you on your taxes. And also, you can find this in in like other sort of traditionally minded circles as well. People will find these legal loopholes or these little tidbits of history to justify everything and then sort of explain it all away. This is what legalism does. Right? We see Christ when he comes in the Gospels. He shows that the faith is not two-dimensional, it's three-dimensional. There's like a synthesis of all these things that have to be understood all together. You can't just take pieces here and there. So what these modernists want you to do, they want you to separate. They want you to separate behavior from intention, behavior from the interior life. They want you to believe that it's technically okay for the church to bless these same-sex unions as long as the men promise not to practice the relationship. But this is profoundly un-Catholic because this would be blessing a relationship in which the people promise to live in a state of continual temptation for a sin that will damn their soul. Do you see the problem here? And this is the next level that has to be discussed, because they're going to get you to focus on this silly nonsense about blessing these chaste unions, so-called, but they're going to fail to mention that these are men with predilections that tempt them to things that are mortally sinful, and they're going to be having them live under the same roof for reasons of friendship, etc. But clearly, they're not just friends. Otherwise, they wouldn't be doing that. And in this case of these older blessings, these literally are just the blessings of something like monastic friendships, totally different than this thing that we're seeing now. So I don't think we're going to be able to avoid this. I think it's just going to happen. I think it's going to be one of those things that's, well, it's going to be like before the Second Vatican Council, or before they sort of made communion on the tongue or communion on the hand the norm. People just did it in different dioceses. And then eventually it was just kind of they all knew about it in Rome. They didn't do anything about it, but it was just being done. And they just kind of let it happen. And that was it. And they never said anything about it. And before you know it, it's just the way it is, even though it's against the rules. Technically, too, the permission to do communion on the hand in the United States did end in the 1970s. They just never renewed it, but they never stopped the practice. So it's not technically licit according to the way it was implemented. But the point is, I bet you we're going to see same-sex blessings in the church, and it's going to follow this. So anyway, we'll see. As always, let me know what you think in the comments. This has been the Kennedy Report. Until next time, God bless.